I'd like to introduce Derek Dennis. Derek, why don't you come up and give us a little bit of background history here.
Thank you, Representative Stiegel and Mr. Chairman, for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I am not a veteran. I am just your average guy that happens to teach and coach in this great state, and I am privileged and honored to be able to speak to you. I can tell you today that by the grace of God and hyperbaric oxygen treatment, that I am alive. I have struggled with depression and concussions and irritability and fits of rage the majority of my adult life. Insomnia. Most of my symptoms did not begin exacerbating until about the age of 21, 22. I was married when I was 21, and short thereafter, my wife and I look back on those days and see, I thought it was just stress, you know, the stress of life. And while those could be some of the circumstances that triggered that, I look back on playing football in junior high and hitting and seeing bright lights. And of course, I grew up in the country, and I was taught to be tough. I wanted to be a bull rider growing up, and that was my CB handle. We didn't have cell phones when I was a kid. And on the CB, I was bull rider. And my stepdad and step-grandpa taught me that you were only tough if you could put 2 chews of Red Man in your mouth. And the longer you kept it in there, you were tougher, the tougher you were. And that was my mentality. I wasn't the best athlete on the field, but I was bound and determined to be the toughest. And when I would hit, even in junior high, I would see bright lights. And I remember going on into high school, and literally almost every game, after at least one big hit, I would feel as though I was in a dream. And it was as if I was having an outer body experience. And I just thought it was me. I never got knocked out. All you did was hit a little smelling sauce when you got to the sideline, and you went back in and you played. And when the guard blocked down and the tackle kicked out and that fullback led up through A gap, you met him in A gap. And you met him low and you met him hard. And that's what I was taught. The pictures that are up on here, I Googled myself, which was kind of a weird deal, and it's a humbling experience when nothing pops up. That is one of the most devastating hits that I was ever a part of. In that middle picture, I'm running back, and our tailback, Pinky Hurley, catches the ball and has about a 20-yard sprint, and we're playing Mesa State College. That's my sophomore year of college. And I'm running, and I've got a 30-yard sprint, and Pinky passes me, and I hit the guy, and I flip him, and I fall down on the ground. And when I get up, my vision is split. And on the left side, I have green gel. It's like someone's poured green gel down the left side of my vision. And I'm trying to run off the field, and I'm falling down, and I'm getting up, and I'm running like I've been spinning in circles. And finally, they get me to the sideline. I play the rest of the game, and I do not remember any of that game. And it was what they called a second-degree concussion that put me out of my college career, late into the season of my junior year of college. And there went my full scholarship. But that's not the bad part. The bad part is what came on later in life, all the symptoms, the fits of rage with my children, the fits of rage with my wife, the embarrassment of having to move every 2 or 3 years because you get crossways with someone at work, and it's going to be either I'm going to get fired or I need to move. And the straw that finally broke the camel's back for me was actually getting fired. And I had been practicing for 2 weeks with my 12-gauge shotgun. And we heard our friend speak about chewing on the end of that shotgun. I know what that feels like. And I'm telling you, it's concussions that did it for me. My father chose to take his life when I was 16 months old. And it was a dream of mine to be a healthy dad and a healthy husband. I remember being a little kid living in Wellston, Oklahoma, 4 miles south of town on a red dirt road with a wooden bat I bought from Sears that I saved up from mowing yards, and I'd hit gravel across the road, and I could hear that gravel spin bzzz, off that bat, man. I thought that was cool, and I'd think, someday I'm going to be a dad, and someday I'm going to be a husband. And I'm going to be a daddy. And I'm going to do it like I didn't get to have it. And these concussions almost ruined that for me. And I found myself clicking a shotgun in 2012 before I went to Yukon to coach Colby Baker. And one day my computer messed up, so I just picked it up, I tossed it across the room, and I walked out. And I picked my shotgun up and one turkey shot, because I thought, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly, and let's get it done. And thank God my wife was standing in the garage on the phone with our worship pastor, and she began kicking me and screaming at me and saying things that I didn't know that woman could say. And it got my attention. It got my attention. And I called a place called the Amen Clinic, and had read a book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And if you haven't read that book, I would definitely encourage you to do that. And I went to the Amen Clinic because I wanted to find out what's wrong with me. And this is what I found out. On the left side, by the way, this cost $4,500, which I didn't have. And I have a friend in our church that one day, he asked me to have breakfast, and he handed me a check, and he said, "Son, you go get healthy." And I found out those holes in my brain are not holes. That's where those cells aren't getting blood. And the only thing that can get those cells blood is oxygen. And my insurance, which, by the way, Oklahoma Health Choice is good insurance, folks. It's real good insurance. But they wouldn't cover all my costs. And you can see in my frontal lobe there on the top left corner, that's the executive center of your brain. I'll let the doctors talk about that, but that's your organization and your decision making. And then my parietal lobes are messed up. My occipital lobes were messed up. I can't track, or I used to not be able to track a golf ball off a tee. And I coached football, and they'd put me in the press box, and I'd get frustrated because I couldn't tell them what was happening. And I never could figure out why the other coaches saw so many things happening at the same time. Makes total sense now. But one thing that hyperbaric oxygen has helped me that may be the most dramatic, and I haven't had specs done since then just because of the price of them, but on the right, you see the electrical activity of the brain. My psychiatrist looked at me and he said, you see your deep limbic system there in the middle, top left-hand corner? He said, that's white hot. There's probably been some emotional trauma in your life. And I thought, man, if you only knew. And then he said, your basal ganglia are pretty active. Those are the two red dots there. He said, you've got borderline overactive basal ganglia, if not overactive basal ganglia, but that's not uncommon. He said, Dr. Amen has overactive basal ganglia. That's your CEOs, your entrepreneurs, your driven people. They think all the time. He says, but you got to watch addiction because your mind never stops. He said, but what scares me the most is that little red dot. That's impulse control. And I don't know because I don't have the proof to put up in front of you, but I can testify that after 40 hyperbaric oxygen treatments, and I'm going to go back for more, but after 40, my impulse control is better. My mood has been stabilized. And you can ask my wife and you can ask my children. My wife was planning on being here but was unable to make it. I have a healthier relationship with my 2 kids because my wife has educated them on the problems Daddy has had. And my son, who also was not able to finish his junior year of high school because of having 3 concussions, has received 40 hbot treatments because of the generosity of Paul and Greg Conrady working with us at Oklahoma Oasis Hyperbaric Oxygen. And today, instead of smoking marijuana to medicate for his anxiety, the young man is in his 4th year of a 5-year master's program to be an architect at the University of Kansas, which is one of the top 14 architecture schools in the world. And so I stand before you by the grace of God, and I can tell you hyperbaric oxygen treatment works.